From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on this Thursday night. And we have several developing stories as we come on that major news on vaccine here in the U.S. But we're going to begin tonight with the major news from the impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump. House managers working as prosecutors in the case saying it could all happen again unless the former president is held accountable. They repeatedly today turned to the president's supporters who they say invited them to the Capitol in their own words as they broke in. They say they were there for the president, shouting at officers, "We are listening to Trump, your boss," in their words. They again turned to harrowing images from that day, showing the crowds that day, echoing the president's own words before and during the siege. At the Capitol chanting they were there to fight for Trump. The managers playing interviews from riders saying they came to Washington because the president had called them to be there. And the managers using the president's words to show he had encouraged violence and insurrection before. They said he had a history of this, leading to that deadly siege on January 6th. The former president's defense begins tomorrow, and what we're hearing already tonight from the former president's team. Rachel Scott leading us off again this evening from the Hill.
On day 3 of the impeachment trial, House managers warned what we saw in our nation's Capitol could happen again if the former president isn't held accountable. They argued the president delighted in what he saw that day, and they repeatedly played supporters in their own words, saying they were there. They were breaching the Capitol, quote, fighting for Trump. Yeah. Insisting Donald Trump lit the fuse, that he invited them himself, already pointing out the president's tweet, "Be there on January 6th, quote, will be wild." Today, House impeachment managers argued the former president knew when he asked those in attendance to fight for him, they would, playing their own words, arguing it makes it clear who they were listening to.
Me personally, I do not feel a sense of shame or guilt from my heart from what I was doing. I thought I was following my president. I thought I was following what we were called to do. He asked us to fly there. He asked us to be there. So I was doing what he asked us to do.
If it comes down to war, guess what? I'm going to be there.
We're all going to be up here, and we're going to be breaking those windows.
Shouting at officers, quote, "We're listening to Trump, your boss." And they quoted an attorney for one of those rioters under arrest and charged. He was there at the invitation of the president.
Any guy that can do a
House managers arguing the president himself, with his words, ignited the attack.
He struck a match, and he aimed it straight at this building, at us.
And the Democrats, acting as prosecutors, said this was hardly the first time the former president encouraged violence with his words. Lead manager Jamie Raskin said it was the former president's essential MO for years.
The insurrection was the most violent and dangerous episode so far in Donald Trump's continuing pattern and practice of inciting violence. But I emphasize so far.
Raskin pointing to Trump's calls to, quote, liberate Michigan. After COVID restrictions there, he called it a dress rehearsal for the insurrection. Trump called those who stormed Michigan's Capitol very good people. They pointed to Charlottesville. And what the president said after.
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
This pro-Trump insurrection did not spring into life out of thin air.
They argued today race also played a role. Trump emboldening white supremacists in the mob who hurled racist slurs at black officers. They said one officer, with tears on his face, asked, "Is this America?" A question they asked again today.
Is this America? What is your answer to that question? Is this okay? If not, what are we going to do about it? These people matter. These people who risk their lives for us. And I ask each of you, when you cast your vote, to remember them and honor them.
The House managers arguing the president's repeated use of the First Amendment as his defense will not work. Arguing as president, your words matter even more. An argument they say was also made by late conservative Justice Scalia.
Justice Scalia got it exactly right on this. He wrote on these cases about how the First Amendment affects people who take on a public office. He said, you can't ride with the cops, but root for the robbers. You can't ride with the cops, but root for the robbers. That's what Justice Scalia said. Our president, whoever he or she is, must choose the side of the Constitution. Must. And not the side of the insurrection or the coup or anybody who's coming against us. And if he or she chooses the wrong side, I'm sorry.
Democrats acknowledging the trial has been emotional, triggering. They know it has affected Democrats and Republicans, senators who now sit as jurors. But many Republicans who were moved by what they saw still giving no indication they will convict. The lead manager asking them, if this is not impeachable, what would be?
My dear colleagues, is there any political leader in this room who believes that if he is ever allowed by the Senate to get back into the Oval Office, Donald Trump would stop inciting violence to get his way? Would you bet the lives of more police officers on that? Would you bet the safety of your family on that? Would you bet the future of your democracy on that?
And so let's get right back to Rachel Scott tonight, back up on the Hill for us. And Rachel, you reported there that Democrats and Republicans have been moved by the House manager's presentation over these last couple of days. President Biden also weighing in today, suggesting after those images yesterday that minds may have been changed. Here's what he said.
I think the Senate has a very important job to complete, and I think my guess is some minds may have been changed, but I don't know.
We should point out that later in the day, the White House press secretary today saying the president was not intending to give a projection or prediction, that he was just noting that many people had a very human and emotional response, in her words. But even if they were moved, Rachel, many Republicans have said they were, in fact, but they still have given no signal that they have any plan to convict. What are you hearing on the Hill?
David, a handful of Republican senators that we are watching were spotted inside of the chamber taking extensive notes. Senators Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, but Democrats need more than just a handful. They need the support of 17. And while many senators were stunned by the images that they saw this week, few Trump allies were swayed. Senator Lindsey Graham, leaving the chamber tonight, was asked if there was anything that was said, anything that he heard that would change his mind. David, he replied with one word: no.
17 senators seems very unlikely still at this point. Rachel Scott, thank you.